Om Shri Sai Ram. Dear students, today we are going to read and understand There's a Girl by the Tracks by Devan Kannada. I want you all to have a good look at the picture. You can see a car there with a girl who has been knocked down by the car, and there are a few spectators there who are having various kinds of expressions on their faces. Now, if you were one of them, what would be your reaction? What would you do in that situation? As I cannot ask this question directly, what I did was I interviewed a few people, and these were the responses I got. Some of them said, I would have taken her to the hospital. As you can see, she's a schoolgirl. You can see the books scattered all over there. Many of them said, I would just put her in a vehicle and take her to the hospital. Some of them said, I would call an ambulance. Couple of them said that they would call the police. And there was just one person who said that he would have just watched and done nothing. And finally, there was another person who said that he would have looked at the scene and then just gone away. So you can see that when you see something bad happening, people can respond in different ways. This is a profound saying by Dalai Lama. If you want others to be happy, practice compassion. If you want to be happy, practice compassion. Now, what is compassion? Compassion is a strong feeling of sympathy for the suffering of others and a wish to help them. When you see somebody else suffering or going through a hard time, you feel that you want to help them and you have a great empathy towards them. That is called compassion. Now here in this statement, in my opinion, the most profound word is practice. Most of the time what happens is we feel compassion towards others. Oh, he's suffering, I feel so sorry for you, and then we leave. But practicing compassion is when you have the ability and the desire to go really and help that person, then only it is effective. If we are compassionate towards somebody, we just have the feeling and we don't do anything about it, there is really no use. So we have to practice compassion. Only then, not only will we be happy, we will make the other person happy. Now we are going to read and understand this lesson, There's a Girl by the Tracks by Devan Kannada. Now Devan Kannada is a writer in English. He has written several short stories for journals and magazines. Now why do you think there's an exclamatory mark at the end of the title? Now to find a girl by the tracks lying there is not a normal ordinary situation. It's something which evokes surprise. You see it and oh my God, and that is why it is an exclamatory mark. Before we start reading the lesson, let's look at the glossary. The difficult words are listed here. Once again, you have to know all the words and the meaning. It's very important. It not only improves your vocabulary, it is necessary for you for your class as well. Suburban, it's a place outside a city. For example, Muddinahalli would be a suburb of Bangalore. Bangalore is the metropolitan city, and all the areas which are outside it would be called the suburbs. Halt is to stop. Commuter is one who travels to workplace daily, goes to and fro. Swarm is rush. Metropolis, again, a large busy city like Mumbai or Calcutta or Bengaluru or Delhi. The main area is called the metropolis. Usually it is very, very busy there. Hurtle, move fast. Tenuous, weak or shaky. Panic, sudden feeling of fear. Somebody is very frightened, we say he's in a panic mode. Clattering is making a loud noise. Muffled, silenced. Thud, low sound. Knocked senseless, fell down, unconscious. Gasp, like that. Take a deep breath when one is surprised. Emanate, come from. impulsively, without thinking, frantically, with no hope, hopelessly, very worried, shout, pushed roughly, sprint, run very fast. Few more words. Sprawled, fallen with arms and legs spread out in an irregular manner. Gash is a deep cut or a deep wound. Gingerly, nervously. Implore, request. Here is not just an ordinary request, you request in a pleading way. Fiancé, the person to whom one is engaged to be married. So for a man who is going to marry a woman, the woman is his fiancé, and for the woman, the man is her fiancé. So it can be a man or a woman. Lanky, tall and thin. Treading water, this is an idiom, making no progress. Pondered, thought carefully. So these are all the difficult words which I have listed. Difficult in my opinion, it might be difficult for you, so I listed them. If you find any other word which you are not able to understand, please refer your dictionary. And as I have always told you before, those of you who have difficulty with English, I am sure you all have an English to Kannada dictionary. Please refer that and make sure you know the meanings of the words before you start reading the sentences in the text. Now we'll start the first paragraph of the lesson. As the Mumbai suburban electric train made its 22nd 6:32 p.m. halt at a station, commuters swarmed out and into its 12 packed coaches. It's a regular scene in and around India's most populated metropolis. Having just managed to squeeze herself into a ladies' compartment, 21-year-old call center executive Roma Talreja tried to settle into a corner near the door. The train hurtled ahead and Roma, jammed between other women, was trying to find some space to stand safely on when she suddenly got pushed, lost her tenuous foothold and panicked. There are some words I think may be a little difficult for you here. Suburban, again, we went through the glossary. Suburban is outside the city. So the train which goes from central Mumbai, it goes to different places and you can see that it goes very fast. Wherever it stops for such a short period. 20 seconds is nothing, not even half a minute. So when it stops for those 20 seconds, all the people who have to get out of the train have to get out and those who have to get in have to get in. So you have to do it very fast. So here what happens, this young woman, Roma Talreja, she gets into the train, she squeezes in because it is so crowded. She forces herself in and she finds herself jammed between several other women. Jammed means like squashed up. She's jammed between several women, and when she was trying to find some space to stand, it is so crowded, there's no place even to keep her feet in properly. When she's trying to find some place to stand, she gets suddenly pushed and loses her tenuous. Tenuous means shaky, weak. She's not even standing properly. She loses her foothold and she gets really scared. And remember, when we get scared, we make the situation even worse. Now let's see what happens next. Her hands reached for the steel railing above. Usually in the trains, there's a railing on top which you hold on to be steady so that you don't fall somewhere. So her hands reached, but she could not find the railing. So she was just catching air like this. But finding only air, what did she do? What happened? She was thrown out of the coach. Remember, she was standing in the doorway of the train and first of all, she did not have a proper foothold. She was quite unsteady, and to steady herself, she tried to catch hold of a railing, but she could not get it. So unfortunately, she just gets thrown out of the coach. Now the clattering roar of the train, when the train is moving, it makes that clattering noise. muffled the thud, so she fell out. Thud, it is a soft sound. Muffled the thud of her fall onto the ground more than a meter below. So she fell outside the train. She was knocked senseless. That means she became unconscious. As you can see in the picture, the train, and you can see her lying beside the tracks, by the tracks. Now, I want you to look at the picture properly. You can see that she's not on the tracks, she is by the tracks. Let's see what happens next. Standing near the door of another train, speeding in the opposite direction, 20-year-old Baleshwar Mishra couldn't believe what he had just seen. A young woman in a black salwar kameez lying next to the tracks. Meanwhile, gasps and screams emanated from his compartment. There's a girl by the tracks. The voices cried out. So you can see Roma's train was going like this, and there's a train coming in the opposite direction. Roma, you know what happened to her. She lost a foothold and she fell out at that time, and she's lying there beside the tracks, between the two tracks. And the other train, which is coming from the other side, one of the persons there, his name is Baleshwar Mishra, he saw this girl who was wearing a black salwar kameez. And he just could not believe it. And all the other passengers also, they were stunned. They were shocked to see a young woman lying beside the tracks, and they immediately shouted, there's a girl by the tracks. Let's see what happens next. Impulsively, means without even thinking, Baleshwar went and grabbed the train's red emergency chain. How many of you have not seen the chain? I've traveled so many times, I don't think I really have a look at it. But in case some of you have missed seeing what it looks like, I thought I'll put a picture of it on the screen. Grabbed the train's red emergency chain and pulled it down frantically. Means hopelessly. He was having a feeling something bad must have happened to the girl, but he just pulled it down. The train screeched, slowing down. So when the emergency chain is pulled down, usually the train will slowly stop. He then surveyed the compartment full of wary faces. Wary means worried. Everyone is looking worried, upset, because everyone has that feeling of compassion. Let's go and help her, he shouted. But nobody volunteered, afraid of getting involved, of being inconvenienced perhaps. So you see, most of the time, this is how people react. We feel that we want to help somebody in trouble, but there are so many other voices in our mind which tell us, oh, if you do that, maybe the police will come, it will become a police case, it will be so much of inconvenience, let somebody else handle it. That is the mentality of most of us, and that is the reason why most of us don't go and help somebody in trouble. So in this case, he thought that everyone would be willing to come and help the girl, but nobody volunteered, so he was really stunned. Next, let's see what happens next. His heart hammering, that means tuck, 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 tuck. It is really beating fast, hammering his chest. Baleshwar shoved himself, means moved forcibly to the door and jumped off the still moving train. As he landed on the ground, a burst of pain shot up in his ankle, but there was no real damage. He got up to find part of his old rubber slipper sole torn off as a result of his fall. But Baleshwar started to sprint back between the tracks as his train picked up speed again and disappeared. So nobody was willing to help. Everyone felt ha-hoo. They were all very sorry and everything. Everyone looked worried, but not a single person was willing to help the girl. But Baleshwar, he was very courageous. He was determined to do something to help that girl who was lying there. So he just went through the door and jumped off. And when he jumped down, because of the force of his landing, he hurt himself, but fortunately it wasn't much. He was able to manage and he was able to run. Now, only thing which happened was his old rubber slipper sole was torn off. I hope you all know what a sole is. I'll just show it to you. If you have a slipper, the bottom part of the slipper is called the sole. Let's see what happens next. Baleshwar was so far off from Rama, he couldn't see her because the train was moving fast. It had slowed down and he had jumped. So there was quite a distance for him to run. I hope I'm not too late, he thought, gasping for breath. Why was he gasping? Because he was running. After running for several minutes, he found her sprawled. Sprawled means lying irregularly. Hands here, one hand there, legs here and there. That is the meaning of sprawled. He found her sprawled by the side of the tracks. Behenji, aap theek hai? He asked. Now what does that mean? That's a Hindi. Remember, the incident happened in Mumbai. Most people speak in Hindi. And what is the meaning of that, sister? Behenji means sister. Aap theek hai means, are you okay? But there was no response and no help in sight. They were alone somewhere between two stations, 5 kilometers apart in Thane district, which borders Mumbai. So this incident where she had fallen was between two stations. There was nobody there and she was not responding. He asked her a question, are you okay? But she doesn't respond because she is unconscious. So he is really stunned, as you can see in the picture. Baleshwar could see blood flowing out of a gash behind the young woman's head. So behind her, she must have fallen and hit her head and you could see the bleeding there. He was very scared because bleeding can be a very serious situation. Saying a silent prayer, he said, oh my God, please help her. Saying a silent prayer, he lifted the 5'2". 5'2" is her height. She's 5 feet 2 inches. 5'2", weighed about 50 pounds. So she was moderate, normal size. 50 kilo Roma gingerly and made his way across the tracks, looking out for trains and searching for a way out. So gingerly means nervously. He was very nervous. What if she's badly hurt? In his heart, he was very scared, but he lifted her up and crossed the tracks, make sure no trains were coming, and he wanted to find a place to take her. He crossed through some shrubberies, bushes, and followed the direction of the sounds until he found the road. So you can listen. When you listen, if there is any traffic going on, you can hear that. So he listened to the sounds and went towards that till he found the road. And he stood by the side of the road and what does he say? My sister is injured. He implored. Implored means request with emotion. Please stop. My sister is injured. He implored motorists who drove by. Please help me take her to a hospital. But no one stopped. This is very common. It is not something unusual. If we see somebody hurt by the roadside, how many of us really stop and ask, can I help? We just look, oh, Papa, poor thing. And then we just go on. That is the normal human tendency, and that is what happened. Not one person stopped. Now, they are giving a little bit about Roma, who she is, in a nice paragraph form. That morning, this is what happened before the accident. Now, the accident happened in the evening. This is what happened in the morning. That is what they're telling you now. That morning, which was December 10th, 2010, by the way, this is a true incident. It really happened 10 years back in 2010. That morning, on December 10, 2010, a Friday, Roma Talreja arrived at the call center bright and early. The BCom graduate from Pune had been working there for 2 years, loving her job, talking and connecting to customers and making new friends there. After work, she went to the cafeteria where she and her friends joked, laughed, and made plans for the weekend. Then, heading home alone after a shift, Roma was looking forward to having supper with her parents and brother and a long phone chat with her fiancé, Vijay. So from this paragraph, we can see that Roma had everything going for her. She had a wonderful life. She was successful. She was happy. So everything good was happening in her life. That is what we can see from this paragraph. She was 21 years old, young. She had a nice job. She was very happy with her job. She loved her job. And what was her job? Talking and connecting to customers, because she was a call center executive. And she made new friends at her workplace. After work, what did she do with her friends? They went to a cafeteria. Cafeteria is a canteen. There they must have had some snacks and coffee or tea or soft drink, something. It's a fun thing to do. You sit with friends, chat, have a few laughs. It is very relaxing. So she did all that. And then it was a Friday, so they were talking about what they were going to do for the weekend, plans for the weekend. After that, little get together with friends, she was heading home after the shift, and what was in her mind? She was thinking of having a nice supper with her parents. Obviously, she lived with her parents and her brother, having nice supper with her parents and her brother, and after supper, go to her room and have a long chat with the fiancé. Fiancé is she's the person she was going to marry. So everything was perfect. She had a really perfect life, as you can see from this. Now let's see what we can know about Baleshwar. His story was just the opposite. Baleshwar Mishra had a very different story. The lanky youngster, lanky means thin and tall, from Mirzapur, Uttar Pradesh, is an unemployed high school dropout. That means he did not even complete high school. He had no job, unemployed, who had recently come to Mumbai. He must have come there to search for a job. Where was he living? If you don't have a job, obviously you don't have income, so you have to live with somebody else because you won't have money to pay any rent. Living with his two older brothers, his job hunt had proved fruitless. Fruitless means unsuccessful. Now he was treading water. Treading water means it is an idiom. He was treading water and had resigned himself to the fact that he was running out of options. He had spent his day with a friend, grabbed lunch and watched a movie. As Baleshwar boarded the train home, he pondered over his future. But all he could think now was saving a stranger's life. So as you can see, Baleshwar had it very hard. He did not have a job. He was a high school dropout. He did not know what to do. He was treading water. He didn't know what to do. Can you tread water? Can you walk on water? You can't. So he felt there's no option. He didn't know what to do. And so after looking for a job all day unsuccessfully, he spent his day with his friend, grabbed lunch, means quickly ate something and watched a movie. But right now when he was coming home, the only thing which was in his mind was how to be of assistance to this girl who was very severely injured. Now this is what we study for today. So I want you all to read all these paragraphs, make sure you understand them. In order to help you, I put some key points for you. Roma Talreja, a 21-year-old call center executive, is thrown off a moving train. Baleshwar Mishra, a 20-year-old unemployed youth, traveling in another train, speeding in the opposite direction, sees the girl by the tracks. So the two main characters in the story, Roma Talreja and Baleshwar Mishra, he pulls the emergency chain, requests other passengers to help him. No other passengers volunteers to help. Baleshwar bravely jumps off the train, runs to Roma, who is injured and unconscious. He carries her to the roadside, tries to get the attention of some motorist who could stop and help him, but no motorist stops to help. This is what we saw. These are the key points of the section which we read just now. Comprehension check. These are the questions which I would like you to answer in your notebooks. First question, answer the following questions in 2 or 3 sentences each. Number 1, it's a regular scene. What was regular about the scene? So the answer to this you will find in the first paragraph of the lesson. What did Baleshwar do when he saw a girl lying by the tracks? Number 3, how did Roma Talreja fall by the tracks? Number 4, what happened to Baleshwar when he jumped off the slow-moving train? So very straightforward questions. I don't think you'll have any problem answering them. Second one, read the following extracts and answer the questions that follow. Baleshwar could not believe what he had just seen. Where was Baleshwar when he saw this? B, what did he see? C, what did he do? So you have to read this extract and answer these questions. You have done this before last year, so there should be no problem how to answer. I want you all to answer all the answers in full sentences, grammatically correct. Make sure you start your question with capitals and with full stops. Wherever there's a pause, there should be a comma. Don't forget any of those things. Number 6, there's a girl by the tracks. The voices cried out. Whose voices were they? Who was the girl? How did she happen to be by the tracks? So, 3 answers to be written. Number 7, sister, are you okay? Sometimes we can ask you, Behenji, aap theek hai? Either way can be asked for the extract, but there was no response. A, who asked this question? B, who does sister refer to? C, why was there no response? Number 8, please help me take her to a hospital. A, who did the speaker seek help from? B, why did he have to take her to the hospital? C, what was the response to his request? Now my recommendation is, when you answer these questions, first you learn the lesson. It is only 2 parts, 2 sections there, 2 pages I think. You just read the lesson, understand it properly, then close your textbook and answer the question. That is the way you know whether you have understood or not. Just looking at the textbook and finding the answer in the textbook and writing, anybody can do. You can't really judge whether you really know the lesson or not, especially the extracts. Unless you have read the lesson really well and understood it, you wouldn't know who said what and when. So I would suggest that please learn the lesson properly and then attempt the questions. You can all do this on the same day you listen to this video. There's one more longer answer. Answer the following in paragraph form. This is given at the last 2 paragraphs of the lesson which we did. Write briefly about Roma Talreja and Baleshwar Mishra. So one paragraph about Roma Talreja, just write about 4 or 5 sentences. If you can write a little bit more, no problem. And another paragraph about Baleshwar Mishra. I don't want any of you just copying it from the textbook. Read it, understand it, and write in your own words. So again, let me stress, I know I say it every time, always write your answers in your own words. There is no use by hearting anything. Please do not by heart anything. Understand what you have read, know everything, and then write your answers. If there are grammatical mistakes, we can always correct them. But if you try to by heart, it is a lose-lose situation. There is no use at all by hearting anything. So please keep that in mind when you answer the questions. I think that's all for today. So thank you, my voice and my children, and I'll see you next time. Sai Ram.